Hi and welcome to our channel. Today we are going to recap a movie from the John Wick series Part 4. Release in the year 2021. Sit back and enjoy the movie and please don't forget to subscribe. The movie starts with Wick practicing his punches in a fire ring. Next we see, somewhere in the desert, John Wick chases some people on horse. He shoots down all of the three men and approaches to the elder who awaits his arrival. John asks his freedom, which he is told he cannot retrieve unless he is dead. John shoots him dead. Later, in New York, the Harbinger comes to a hotel. The receptionist, Karen, is requested to meet with the manager. The Harbinger tells the manager, Winston Scott, that his hotel is no longer under his control. He is given an hourglass for the remaining time. They go to Vincent Bissett de Gramont, the highest member of the High Table. He threatens about his condition, and as soon as the hourglass is completed, on Vincent command, Winston's hotel is destroyed. Vincent had already threatened Winston, but he shoots Karen and leaves. In Paris, Mia plays violin from afar, and Kane, her father, listens to her. Later, Kane is summoned by Vincent. The Marquis ordered him to kill John Wick. Afterward, in Tokyo, a tourist with his dog comes to the Continental Hotel for a room and meets Akira. Later on, Koji Shimazu, Akira's father and the owner of the hotel, is reminded of his appointment with Suzuki and his dinner. As they walk through the training room, she divulges the news of New York Continental being destroyed. Koji meets with John at rooftop and informs him about the destruction of the New York's Continental. John asks about Winston, which was spared, given another chance by the life of Karen. John is informed that the elder's death lead all the cause, which left him with grief and guilt. Meanwhile, Chidi and the other High Table members comes to the Continental and asks for Koji. She commands to discreetly evacuate everyone from the hotel. Akira comes running to the roof to tell about the arrival of the members, where she becomes angry on John's presence. Koji greets the members, where they tell him to have full access to inspect the hotel as they suspect John's presence. Meanwhile, Kane interrupts their discussion, where Koji is surprised to see him standing behalf of the Marquis. They both ask for their daughters. Kane asks for no blood, which Koji replies to leave, as if no blood is willing to be spoiled. Koji holds the remote and shuts the hotel, leaving complete darkness. All of his member aims at the tables. And the combat begins. They kill everyone, but Chidi gets a backup with armed soldiers. They proceed to the rooftop, where Wick and Akira joins the combat. Later on, Akira gets wounded while Koji helps her and tells John to proceed to the station. John loses his gun in the art room of the hotel, but he manages to continue fighting using a nunchaku. He then confronts with Kane, and asks him that they gave him his role. On crashing of the glass, Kane thought John was dead as he remained silent. He sees a gun beside him and moves where Kane runs at him. The tourist comes, saving John, aiming at Kane, where John escapes safely. Meanwhile, a bounty on him is placed for $20 million. Outside of the hotel, John meets the tourist, who comes out to be Tracker and lets John escape. On the other hand, Koji and Akira runs out and confront Kane. Koji put Akira on the side and proceed with Kane. He wounds Koji in a katana fight. He gives him a chance, but Koji tries his best, yet he dies of another swipe. Akira leaves with the message from Kane that he will wait for her. Meanwhile, John arrives at the station. He gets in the train and sees Akira alone. He understands of Koji's death, where Akira asks for revenge. Winston meets with the Bowery King as he plans to meet with John. Vincent had invited both the Tracker and Kane at his barn. Vincent asks him about him tracing John, but he only wishes to tell him in return of money. He asks for 25 million, Vincent says 20 million, for the final word. He wishes 23 million, where Vincent lets him take his choice. He puts a knife in his hand and let him decide. He takes his hand out rather than the knife, where Vincent grants his condition and let him do his job. John meets with Winston at Karen's gravesite, where John asks him about Vincent and is informed that he has the table and dispose of his choice in John's death. He suggests John to invoke an old High Table tradition to challenge the Marquis to a duel that would free him from all the obligations to the table. John travels to Berlin to the headquarters of the Ruska Roma crime syndicate. John goes to speak to the father, where he is abducted and tied. His adoptive sister Katya tells him about Peter, who got killed, which she reasons the elder's death. John tells her about Marquis to be the common enemy, which they can get ahead by a duel. She stipulates for readmission that John must kill Killa Harkin, a High Table member who murdered her father. Katya sends Klaus with John, who would help him out. Klaus brings John inside as promised and leaves him with Harkin. Surprised to see, Kane is also present at the scene awaiting John's arrival. Meanwhile, the guards brings Mr. Nobody with a gun, as he says it is for John. Harkin says that everyone present has eyes on John, so he rolls a 5-draw card to decide the winner. Mr. Nobody gets the highest card but Harkin cheats and puts all the 5 cards as the same. John and Kane comments him being the cheater prick. And thus begins the combat with John. Kane and Nobody joins him where he escapes the room. John confronts Harkin in the crowd. They are fighting and everyone is dancing, like no one even cares. Incredible. Harkin throws John 2 floors down in a ring where he kills the man with an axe. On the other hand, Kane and Mr. Nobody kills Harkin's men. Anyhow, John knocks Harkin where he runs for his life but gets killed on his way. John takes his golden tooth as for the proof to Katya. John walks out and Mr. Nobody aims at him. He is interrupted by Kane whereas John leaves. He goes back to Katya to give proof of his job and regain his status. Winston relays John's challenge to the Marquis, acting as John's second. At first he refuses as referring to the new rules and a new management. Winston manages to convince him for his glorious achievement if he manages to confront the most feared of all, John Wick. When Vincent accepts the favor, Winston gets an approval for his hotel to be reconstructed and his title regained as funded only by the High Table. On Winston's walkout, he comments the rule that the second would only be able to walk away with his sponsor. If he loses, the second would be buried with him. Sometime later, John comes to Vincent's place where the meeting is moderated by the Harbinger, the table's emissary. John shows his family ticket to be granted the duel. They both decide on the duel's parameters. The time, the location, and the weapons. The Marquis nominates a reluctant Kane to take his place, while the Harbinger warns anyone will be executed if they fail to appear on time. When John leaves, Kane refuses to attempt the fight. But the Marquis threats his daughter. At midnight, the Bowery King arrives in Paris to give John a new ballistic suit. Whereas the Marquis intend to prevent John from arriving at the duel by the time. They place another bounty on him, raising it to 26 millions. This time, using the RJ radio host, he delivers his message to the listeners, giving them the words to finish the job before sunrise. John, Winston and the Bowery King listens to the radio where they know how it begins. John asks for a gun where he is given one heck of a ride. The RJ informs about John being spotted at which place. He fights off hordes of assassins on his way to Sacré-Cœur. John gets multiple little car hits. Chidi was about to kill John but Nobody's dog interrupts him and is thrown on the car. Meanwhile John takes a bike and escapes. The RJ informs where they tell he is near to Sacré-Cœur, until John is caught surrounded on the road. He runs into an abandoned building where Mr. Nobody with his dog aids John intending to the kill all by himself whereas he negotiates a bounty increase to $40 million because the Marquis is afraid of John being alive. On the way forward, John receives a special shotgun to aid himself. Killing everyone leaves Mr. Nobody to be the last man standing who confronts John. John takes him in the hole where they both comes 1 floor down. Chidi arrives in the house. Whereas John takes Mr. Nobody and his dog is saved by John shooting Chidi to death instead of Nobody in front of him. John jumps of the building and proceeds to the church. Listening to the RJ, Kane and the Marquis are both stressed. For Wick, the combat continues. To the church there are 222 steps where other men arrives to take their hit. But John lays everyone down as he climbs them up. John was all way up where Chidi confronts him and throws him back to first step of the stairs. On the destination, everyone is present meanwhile John gets a hand by Kane and they both walk up the stairs together. John is then confronted by Chidi and Mr. Nobody at the same spot. Nobody aims at John where his dog reminds him of John saving his life. Rather shooting John, he shoots Chidi and so Kane comes and Nobody with his dog end him at once. They reach the summit just in time for the duel. They walk 30 paces and fires at each other's shoulder. They take 10 paces forward for the next one and shoots the corners of body. Demanding the right to administer the coup de grace, the Marquis eagerly swaps places with Kane. Winston chides the Marquis for his arrogance, revealing that John has not yet fired his third bullet. John shoots the Marquis dead. The Harbinger grants Kane and John their freedom from the High Table, and Winston is reinstated. John reflects upon his life and marriage before succumbing to his injuries. Sometime later, back in New York, Winston and the Bowery King bid farewell to John at his grave, located next to that of his late wife Helen. In a post-credits scene, Kane returns to Paris to reunite with his daughter but is approached by a vengeful, knife-wielding Akira. And there the movie finishes. If you found this video entertaining, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. We have plenty more movie recaps coming your way, so hit that notification bell to stay updated. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Let us know which movie you'd like us to recap next, and we'll make sure to cover it for you. Until then, take care, and we eagerly await to see you in our next video.